Kick and chase by Mullen. Kick and chase again by Mullen. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line.
Hunter's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome to 40-20 Sports. Today's episode, we're going to be running through the round 0 team lists. Yes, the teams that are off to the big dance in Las Vegas. Going to see how they're stacking up 1 to 17. Also going to give you a little preview of how our team is shaping up for the 2025 Supercoach season. That'll come a little bit later, but first we want to plug our 40-20 Cup. The league code for that is 122155. That is our overall competition we're running here. The winner for that wins $500. Second prize is $250, and third will be a merch pack. So, giving a bit of reward to first, second, and third for that. So that's how we're going to run it this year. All right, we'll get into the good stuff. Round 1 in Vegas. The first game coming up is the Raiders versus the Warriors. The Raiders, we're going to stick onto them first. They line up with KO Weeks, Tamale, Tomoko, Chris, Savage, Strange, and Fogarty make out their back 7. A couple of people I've seen pretty interested on KO Weeks, seeing that he's dual 5'8 fullback, which, look, they're handy duals to have, but looking into KO Weeks last year, he's 530k. He's based on a 54-point average. He's moved to fullback in round 18. From then on to the end of the season, he actually only averaged 46 points. So when he was playing at fullback, he was actually doing worse than he was when he was in the halves. So I've got him as a bit of an avoid. Just seen a couple of people getting onto him with just the fact that he's duals and you can get a fullback in 5'8 position. I think, yes, those duals are handy. But again, I just don't see him having enough output for the 5'8 spot. I've got a few other guys in line for that position. Savelio Tamale, now he's an interesting one because he's named for round 1 over to Albert Hopewade, but there's a lot of talk that Hopewade only not going over to Vegas due to having the birth of his first child back home. So I understand how interesting it would be to go. Tamale, he's 230k. He's nearly bottom dollar cheapy. Looks pretty good coming over from the Dragons there, but I think he's a bit of an avoid for the first couple of weeks. I want to see if he plays round 2, round 3. He's well priced at 232k. He'll be easy to snavel up, easy downgrade if he does play the first couple of weeks and he kills it. But again, I think Albert Hopewade coming in could very well be in that squad round 2. I would be leaving him out and looking for someone else. We've got Tomoko and Chris in the centres there. Nothing to really report there. They're not Supercoach relevant. A bit the same with Ethan Strange and Jamal Fogarty. Jamal Fogarty started the year really well last year, but went back to his old ways, unfortunately. In the forwards, Corey Horsburgh and Joey Tarpanay start at front row with Tom Starling in at the 9. Hudson Young, Zach Hosking and Morgan Smithies, they make out the rest of the forward pack there. Corey Horsburgh, yes, we got him. Dual 2RF front row forward. Really good to see him getting picked for the starting spot there at front row forward. We thought that is where he was going to get picked. That's where he was picked at the end of last year with Papali'i coming off the bench. So really good news for Supercoach owners. Look, I've got him. I've got him in my squad. There's no denying how well he can go. Looking at his season last year, it was pretty up and down. You know, he had that fisticuffs and resis, which really hampered his season. You know, he a little bit the same with Ricky Stewart. He seemed to be coming to blows with him a lot, so that affected his game time, getting picked into first grade. Look, he's 355k, dual 2RF front row forward. I love that. That is so handy to have. Looks like, I think he's going to play up to about 50 minutes. I think that's not too far out of the realm. Maybe not to start because he didn't play in any of the trials. So I don't know what the reason behind that was, whether Ricky's just looking after him, making sure he's right for round 1, or he was worried that he's a bit of a hothead and he might get suspended for 3 rounds in the first trial or whatever. But anyway, when he was playing front row forward, starting front row forward for the last couple of games there, he averaged 50 minutes and averaged 53 points per game. So look, I'm all over him. I think he'll be in most teams. I think his ownership is going to skyrocket. I think it only bodes well for him that he's got the starting spot there. Papali'i's coming off the bench. They are running with a 14, a hooker 14, which helps as well. I think that's going to really help with his minutes. So I can see him getting about anywhere between 50 and 60 minutes, even sometimes increasing throughout the year. Tommy Starling gets the 9, but we're not too interested in him. I think everyone's been burnt with that sort of selection before. Joe Tarpanay, front row. You know what you're getting from him. Zach Hosking starts in the back row. He was under a bit of an injury cloud at the start of the season. Thankfully, he's right to go. Look, I think he's the best decision there for that team. Matty Nicholson, he's come over from the UK. He's not picked at all. So if you were keen on Zach Hosking, I think he might be a little bit underdone coming into the season, but still, I think he plays 60 to 80. If he doesn't play 80, I think it's because of his injuries, and eventually he will get up to that 80 mark. Morgan Smithies in the 13. Look, very meat and potatoes. I think you get what you're given with Morgan Smithies. Also, just to touch on the fucking shit that happened in the elevator with Hudson Young and Morgan Smithies, the fact that they had to have a media conference because of a little bit of push and shove in an elevator just shows how politically correct our game's getting. It's bloody ridiculous. We got to look at Danny Wilder's fucking head for 15 minutes while these blokes apologise for basically doing nothing wrong. Anyway, a little bit of a rant on that, but Danny Wilder does me head in. So, yeah, that's all we've got for the starting side. Owen Paddy, he gets the 14 jersey. Look, it was not really a shock if you saw the trials. He played really, really well, got a double in the trials. Looks every bit of first grader. He's super energetic. His delivery from a hooker is very nice as well. Danny Levi is the man that misses out, so I don't know if anyone was really worried about getting Danny Levi, but he misses out. He moves to the bench. For those looking at going Owen Paddy, I know his bottom dollar is 198k, but I still wouldn't be starting with him. I think Tommy Starling, his stocks probably rise because Tom Starling and Danny Levi were doing a 40-40 split, 40 minutes sort of thing. So I think Owen Paddy, I think he'll be lucky to get 30 minutes a game, unfortunately. I think for the start of the season anyway. Tommy Starling is linked with some other clubs, so maybe they're just getting Owen Paddy a bit of a taste of first grade, get him in there, get him involved with how everything works, send Tom Starling in, get him to do the dirty work, and then, get Paddy 20 to 30 minutes a game for a couple of weeks and then slowly progress him into that starting 9 spot. I'm not exactly sure that's what Ricky's doing, but I would say based off potential, Owen Paddy would shit all over Tommy Starling. So that's what I think. Josh Papali'i, he moves on to the bench. Mariota, he's on the bench with Simi Sasagi. Simi Sasagi's a bit dirt cheap. I would not be going near him. He missed something like 10 tackles in a game of Rezzies one day, so I would be leaving him out. The reserves, we'll just touch on them. Danny Levi, Trey Mooney, Ethan Sanders, Chevy Stewart, and Jed Stewart rack up the rest of the reserves there. For the Warriors side, at the fullback spot, Chance Nickel-Klokstad. In the wings, Tane Tuapiki and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Ali Leitao and Adam Pompey make up the centres. Chanel Harris-Tavita comes into the 6 with Luke Metcalf. Look, I didn't really see this coming, but look, I probably like the decision more, to be honest. I thought Tamari Martin was always an out-and-out 6. Chanel Harris-Tavita, he can play a numerous amount of positions. He can play hooker, lock at a pinch sort of thing. So in 5'8", he's 330k. Look, I think he's a decent buy. I think we need to watch the goal kicking a little bit more here with the likes of Luke Metcalf. Chanel Harris-Tavita was kicking goals last year, and I'm not sure how much he's trialled, but Luke Metcalf, I think he gets the goal-kicking duties. But again, Chanel Harris-Tavita at 330k, if you're not keen on Luke Metcalf and you're looking for a downgrade, I think him at 330 is just as good a buy as Luke Metcalf is at 443. I probably won't be going there. There is a lot of speculation about who will probably get that spot in 6 to 8 weeks. If the Warriors are doing quite poorly, a lot of people are tipping them not to go too well. Potentially, he can lose his spot to Tamari Martin, but look, I think it's a decent sign that Chanel Harris-Tavita, maybe they're locked in at the 6 to stay. Hopefully, they stick with their halves rotation and they go on from there. In the forward, we'll get on to Ali Leitao. I think he's every bit a superstar. Low 500Ks. If you're looking for a player, there's a big thing about these Warriors players, these up-and-comers. No one really knows who they are, and they don't really get much as attention as the young fellas coming through from a Sydney club or a Brisbane club, so to speak. But this guy, Ali, he is an absolute gun. Watched him in the trials. Watched him a little bit last year as well. His scores were really good as well. He's got a discounted price on what his average was. I think there's going to be a part of the year where we get this guy in. He is an absolute freak. He's a monster. He's got a good offload, strong running game. He's silky hands. I really like him. But again, I'm falling into the trap as well where I don't really want to start him because I think he's a bit risky. So I'm going to be really watching this kid. I think by round 3, if he's braining it, I think I'm going to get him in. He's pretty cheap considering. It's one of those ones that's a bit of a guilty pleasure that I would love to get, but I just don't think I can. Another guy that we're talking about, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. He is 553k. He has an enormous workload. We all know about this. We saw him in the trials, 2 tries, steps to a far logo like he was standing still, the light post. I'm big on Roger. I just don't know if I can fit him in my squad at the moment. 553k for him. I think he is an absolute bargain. Just the makeup of my team, I'm pretty set on 2 other Warriors players, and I don't want too many people from the one side in my team due to bye rounds, and if a team has a dud game, it just all goes out the window. But anyway, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, I think he's a good buy as well. In the front row, we have got James Fisher-Harris, Wade Egan, and Mitch Barnett. In the back row, Kurt Capewell. Murata Niokora wins that spot that we were hoping that one of the cheapies were going to get. One to notice is that Murata Niokora, he did start in the first trial when he was named on the bench. So this was sort of always coming, I thought. Aaron Clark, he gets the 13 jersey there. James Fisher-Harris, look, I like the look of James Fisher-Harris. I probably will not be going there, although I can see a world where people will want to. I think he only got, on average, about 45 minutes a game, 45 to 50 minutes a game. I can see a world where he's needed at that club. Adam Fanua-Blake used to play huge minutes. Maybe James Fisher-Harris gets those minutes. He gets around the 60-minute mark, which would be an inflation. He's going over there as the big dog, the top dog. So, look, I can see a world where I think he gets a decent start. Wade Egan. Now, big one on Wade Egan is he is starting hooker and there is no hooker on the bench. There is Dylan Walker, but in the trials, Dylan Walker came in for Aaron Clark. Aaron Clark's another one that I think is a decent option, but again, I just think a ball-playing lock, I sort of, for Supercoach preferences, you want a lock that's just hit-ups, meat and potatoes sort of stuff. Guy I'm interested in, Wade Egan, 491k, has a 50-point average. He's a decent price as far as hookers are concerned. Hookers are absolutely depleted. Look, I think he's an option at that price if he gets the 80 minutes. There's no hooker on the bench. I'm not sure if he's going to get 80 minutes straight out from the get-go, but crazier things have happened. He's played a fair bit of minutes in the trials. He had 10 games last year where he played the full 80 minutes and had a 63-point average. I think maybe he's our answer to what we've been looking for. I know he's not a stellar option, but again, Wade Egan, 491k, I like it. I like the look of it. For the bench, Dylan Walker, like we said, he'll just come in for Aaron Clark. They used Dylan Walker up, I think, last year for about 60-something minutes. He would come off the bench after about 20 to 30 minutes, and he would stay out the entirety of the rest of the game. He's really good around the ruck, really good ball player. They actually, in the trials, they looked a lot better when Dylan Walker was in there, sort of commanding a bit more ball, and they had a bit more structure when he was in there. Jackson Ford comes on. He will take up a bit of space there in the middles. Dimitri Vayamaga, he lands on the bench. Cheapy, 230k, has a massive PPM, points per minute, of 1.6. Not 100% sure where his minutes are going to come from, but I think it's really good that they do have Dylan Walker. He'll lock into the 13 and then play a middle. Jackson Ford, he'll just be a straight-up rotation for a front row forward, either Fisher or Mitch Barnett. I think Valmaga, he can get 25 to 30 minutes, and with a PPM of 1.6, if he gets about 30 minutes, he's looking at about 40-something points per game. So I think he's a decent option. There is Lika Halasima. He is there. He's also a dirt cheapie. He's 230k. I'm just not 100% certain on him. I don't think he's got a bigger rap as what Vayamaga has. Vayamaga was the talk of the town for that team leading into the preseason when they had the captains all in for the season launch. Dylan Walker was there for that, and he praised Valmaga, said he was an absolute freak. So I think Valmaga will probably get a bit more minutes than Halasima. I'm hoping that Halasima is a guy that comes on and only gets that 15 to 20 or 15 to 25 minutes, which frees up a bit more time for Valmaga. So sort of the most important thing in that for people who are going Valmaga is the Halasima is on the bench as well. For the reserves, 18, Samuel Healy. Look, he seems to have taken over Freddie Lussick as the backup hooker there, being the 18th jersey. Tamare Martin, Eddie Toeva, Bunty Afoa, and Edward Corsi. They miss out on a spot by the looks of things. Moving on to the next game, we've got Penrith up against the Sharks. For the Panthers, in the back line there, it is all over the fucking shop. Dylan Edwards is the fullback. Casey McLean and Paul Alamotti are the wings. Isaac Targo and Luke Gardner are in the centres. Jack Cole comes into the 6 and Nathan Cleary at the 7. Good things to see from that. Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary named to start. There was a bit of talk about their shoulders not being right, not recovering from their injuries and from their surgeries throughout the year, but they seem ready to go. Casey McLean, he is the one that has won that wing spot, unfortunately, 440-something K. We did not want him. We wanted his brother Jesse. He is a lot more cheaper. But anyway, Casey McLean, I think he's a decent option. I think playing outside those halves, he will always be a decent option. He's got a good work rate. Everyone knows about the 4 tries he scored for PNG there. Look, I'm not 100% sold on him. I think he's still probably a little bit expensive for my liking. But again, if you're going to go there, I'm not phased on that at all. I think anyone who is a winger out on that edge for the Penrith Panthers, he's going to score well. He's got a really good base. I think it's about 30, mid-30s. So I can't discourage anyone from going there. Luke Gardner wouldn't be touching that. Paul Alamotti wouldn't be touching that. Obviously, To'o, apparently he'll be right for round 2 there. Just a bit of a hamstring niggle. Jack Cole getting the 6. Not really relevant. 400-something K. I think he's basically priced at what he'll get. Whether he keeps that position in the 6 is another thing. Blaze Tulagi had off-season surgery, and it looks like he fully hasn't recovered from that yet. I think that may be... Look, I was sort of sceptical that he was going to get into that 6 jersey at the start of the season just because I think that's a bit of a wild thing for him to be there with defensive-wise. But anyway, he still could come into that squad. He's still recovering from his off-season surgery, so we'll run with that. Nathan Cleary in the 7. Really good signs to see him picked. He did play in an opposed session, so he should be right to go for round 1. Moses Leota and Mitch Kenny, Lindsay Smith make up the front row. Look, nothing really going on here Supercoach-wise. Lindsay Smith is, surprisingly, I was pretty excited to see what Lindsay Smith would come up as, but I didn't expect him to be over 500K. It is, he was coming off the bench. He was still getting 50 minutes average off the bench as well. So I think he's a bit of an avoid if you're going to look to go for him. He could have an uptick in a year, but I'm not prepared to go there. Scotty Sorensen, Liam Martin, and Isaiah Yeo make up the back row. The big one there is Isaiah Papali'i is on the bench. Now, we talked about this as well when we were doing our Penrith Panthers breakdown. There was every chance this was going to happen. Everyone was under this illusion that Papali'i was going to get this spot. How they thought that was going to happen. You've got Scotty Sorensen and Liam Martin, who are premiership winning, multi-premiership winning back rowers up against Papali'i, who was struggling in a wooden spoon side. So anyway, he's on the bench. You can probably scrap him from your sides. There's every chance that he comes through the middle now as well, which may be a bit of an uptick for his involvement. But again, his minutes, I don't think there's enough minutes there. Dane Laurie, the 14, wouldn't be touching him. Matthew Eisenhunt and Luron Patea, he had a couple of games. He's had 3 NRL games. He's based at about 230K. I wouldn't be touching him. There's many guys to come back in this squad. I think he'll drop out in the later rounds. For the Rezzies, Schneider, Gaia, Jesse McLean is there, so hold on to a bit of hope. A bit later down the season, he gets a bit of a run. Luke Summerton and Blaze Tulagi are in the reserves there. So, look, there's not a great deal of value in that Penrith Panthers squad. It's pretty much what we expected. It's very hard being that good for that long that you do find a bargain in there. We were hoping Jesse McLean would be there, but Casey McLean, unfortunately, having a couple of games there, he seems to have won that wing jersey over him, regardless of the fact if To'o is in or out. For the Sharkies, look, they are pretty much as everyone sort of expected, apart from Katoa. Samuel Stonestreet comes in, but again, he's a try-scoring machine. His last couple of games, I think he scored about 9 tries in 4 or 5 games, so he's an absolute barnstormer. If anyone's looking for an anytime try scorer, that's your man. For the back, William Kennedy, Sam Stonestreet, Jesse Ramian, Kailiro, Ronaldo Mulatalo. Look, exactly how you would expect all these guys to be named. I I'm so hard to find a bit of value in this team, even with Sam Stonestreet getting the wing spot there. We were hoping a super cheapie would come into that, but he's an out-and-out gun. He had a really good rookie season last year. The games that he did play, he scored really, really well. So I've said this before when we did our Sharks preview as well. Like these guys, I don't know if you can start with any of these guys. Their averages average out that they all have decent averages, but it just works out that you don't know who you're going to get on any given day. So Ronaldo Militalo, he could go 100. The next week, he could go 20. I don't think you need that inconsistency in your team, although the averages, I know they work out. I just like to start with guys that have a bit more base and power than that. So for the back five there, I would be avoiding any of them for the start of the season based on nothing more than they're all too good for each other. They all take away each other's points. 6 and 7, we've got Braden Trindle and Nicho Hynes. Look, there was a lot of chatter around Nicho Hynes maybe getting into the 6, and there's always a lot of chatter on things that people want to happen that helps their Supercoach team. So I know it would have been nice to have Nicho Hynes in at 5'8". That would have been absolutely ideal. Everyone says Braden Trindle runs a side anyway, but look, I think that's Nicho Hynes' side for now. That could change throughout the year, but anyway, Nicho Hynes keeps the 7. The forwards, Adam Fanua-Blake, Blake Brayley, Oregon Kaufusi, Britton Nakora, Teague Wilton, and Cameron McInnes. That is exactly how we thought that was going to line up, and it is exactly how it should line up. Again, there is no real value in those teams. I like Britton Nakora. I think the end of his season last year was really, really good. I think he finished in the high 80s for the last couple of rounds. So he started the season quite poorly in the start of the season. Bit hard, I think, to go there up against Penrith. But again, Penrith Panthers, I don't think they're as good a side in this game. They've got a lot of outs in this game. Henry, To'o, the likes. I think the Sharkies have every chance of doing them over there in Vegas. But again, Britton Nakora, a bit of a risky one to start the season. Hopefully he has a bit of a similar year to what he did last year. Loses a couple of coin. We pick him up nice and cheap, and they have him for the run home. Teague Wilton, again, we know what we're getting from him. He runs a good whole line. He's probably priced at what he's going to average out for the season, so no real value. Daniel Atkinson makes his way onto the bench. Talakai is also on the bench. Braden Hamlin-Llewellyn and Thomas Hazelton rack out the interchanges there. Nothing more to see there. Tommy Hazelton, there's a bit of interest in him. He was a try-scoring fanatic towards the end of the last year. I think he's probably overpriced for that. I would not be starting with Tommy Hazelton. The reserves, Tapahua, Hiroti, Burns, Jaden Berrell, and Hohepa Puru. That rolls out what we've got for the team lists there for the guys that are over there in Vegas for round 0, so to speak. All right. The one you've been waiting for, we are going to have a little preview of what our team is looking at the moment to shape up. Again, please go and follow us on Instagram. I will be revealing my team probably an hour from kickoff, making sure there's no late ins or outs with it. Just a lot sort of depends with my side on who's in, who's out sort of thing towards the back end of what's going on there. Anyway, we'll get into it. For the hooker position, we've talked about him before. Wade Egan, 491k, based on a 50-point average of last year. Games he played, 80 minutes, had the 64-point average, got the 10 games at 80 minutes last year. I really like him. Even if he doesn't go ballistic, I don't see him averaging under 50. Even if he does, maybe it's a 45. So look, if that's the case, he's still 491k. He might lose a little bit of bicky. The main thing that our goal is with our hookers, everyone talks about it, got to get Harry Grant. Our goal is Harry Grant. If you start the season with 2 rookie hookers, I don't know how you're going to get there until about round 10, possibly earlier if they brain it. But again, I just don't see how you can get to Harry Grant quick enough without decimating your side. I think Wade Egan, if he can go up to about 550, 560, that's not asking a lot. That's just asking for 60 more K from him. 56, 57-point average, it's quite an easy jump to Harry Grant. Harry Grant has the bye round 2, so There is some things where you could possibly get Harry Grant around round 4 if Wade Egan gets a bump up and Harry Grant is still, stationary with his scores. On the bench there, I have got Peter Mamazoulis. Look, I really like him. He played really well in his trial against the Dragons there for the Charity Shield. I thought, Little bit of noise with all these injuries that are going on at Souths that, yeah, look, fair enough as well, but I don't know where you can get a guy that is 300k. I think he scored about 70 points in Supercoach-wise in about 60 minutes on the weekend. Looked dangerous. His second half, he was really explosive out of dummy half, very creative towards the back end when the forwards were getting tired. So, look, I like him. Had a PPM of 1.1 on last year, so even if Havili or Humphreys do come in and take a bit of minutes out of him, although there's every chance that Humphreys now moves into the 7 role, I think there's every chance that Peter Mamazelis, even if he gets 60, he can average about 50. If he gets to 45, 50, I'm happy with that. Happy to have him on my bench. Looks like a safer bet than one of the other guys that I've dropped out of my squad, which is Sandon Smith. He looked very poor. The Roosters looked poor on the weekend, so I think I'll be taking him out of my squad over Peter Mamazelis. Mazulis just looked a lot more dangerous. For the front rowers, Terrell, mate, 597k. Look, he picks himself. I think played the whole entire of the first half. Barely looked tired. He's got a huge engine, offload. He gets to his feet really well. Quick play the balls. I think he scored 50-something points in Supercoach in the first half. Look, if that's anything to go with, he gets the first half, plays a full 40. At least he's going to get 20 in the back half. So I was predicting about 50, 55 minutes for Terrell May. I think it's up. I think it's about the 60-minute mark. If we can get that out of him, he could average about 80 for the season. He's an absolute freak. For my other one, at the moment, we are looking at Emre Gula, 331k. I've gone a little bit light in my front row, second row forwards, just because I've stacked my bottom half of my team. Emre Gula, 331k. He's based on about a 36, 37 minutes a game. On the weekend in the Charity Shield, he got 45, and he got about 50 points in base alone. Looks super busy. I know they had a lot of ball, which accounts to more runs, which accounts to more points, but still, he looked phenomenal. He looks fit. He looks like he is their number one front row option at the moment. Fingers crossed they don't make any more signings. I believe Molo is all but on the way out, so I like Emre Gula at 331k. The buy there for them is a little bit tricky, but still, I'm happy to run with it. On the bench there, Royce Hunt. Little bit up and down on Royce Hunt, 249k. Look, I'm not sure on his minutes. I think he may go back to being a plotter at 25, 30 minutes a game. They've got some decent forwards there now with May. I think May is going to take up a huge amount of minutes. Twal can take up a huge amount of minutes. Fanua Pole, he can play big minutes. I think Royce Hunt is going to be an impact player. The only time it will sort of stuff me over early in the rounds, Emre Gula the Dragons have it by quite early. So the beauty of the flex is Royce Hunt can come into my team. If he gets 6, he'll drop out. So it doesn't really matter there. My backup guy, I think I have spent enough money at front row forward. I hate spending money there. So Hamish Stewart, 198k. He is 0% owned, which is bullshit because I've got him. He was the number 17 in the Charity Shield. Came on, looked really good. He's a big body, fast moving. Flanagan come out and said that, look, he's probably going to rotate these young fellas, the likes of Stewart, Pacifica Tonga, and Egan. I just like the fact that Stewart was the number 17 in that Dragons, and I just want a cheapie. I don't really care what he gets per game, whatever he averages. I just need a cheapie there for the numbers. Fingers crossed he can jag a couple of offloads in that a game, a couple of injuries where he gets a bit more minutes, and I'll be happy. Second row forwards, Jacob Preston is my number one guy there. He is 609k. It looked absolutely phenomenal in the trial there for the Doggies. Had that big breakaway try where he scored from about 50, 60 out. He looked really, really promising. Look, his scores of last year, he had a very disappointing year. I think he's going to play 80. I know they got Satili Tupanua coming off the bench, but again, Curran's gone for a couple of games more than likely with a suspension. So at least for the first couple of games, we'll get a bit of an introduction to him. I think he's going to play 80. Tupanua will come into that middle role where Curran's out. I really like him. I think he's a fantastic buy. He works his absolute arse off. Got about 90-something in 60 minutes in the trials. His games that he plays 80 minutes, he skyrockets with his average. I think he's an attacking option. He runs a very good line. Looks really good. I like him. Alex Seyfarth, 435k. Look, I wasn't overly keen on Alex Seyfarth until I saw the Tigers run out on the weekend. He was their captain. I think it'll be him and Finau, whatever his name is. Sorry for the other back rower. I think they will be the two back rowers. I think Seyfarth plays 80. I was a little bit questionable of that, but the fact that they've made him captain in the trials, he's in the leadership group, I think he will be an 80-minute back rower. His defence was really, really solid. He got enough runs. There was a bit of talk about, I heard a podcast say that they were worried about Galvin not getting enough ball to go right. If you haven't watched the trials and you see how dominant Galvin is and how much he commands the ball, Jerome Luai isn't a selfish player. He's a very, very good player, but he isn't selfish. I think Galvin's going to get a lot of ball, and Seyfarth is going to be his main man that he's hitting on those short balls close to the line. Corey Horsburgh, talked about him before. He is in my second row forwards purely to get Emre Gula in my front row forwards. Look, that could change. Something could happen there, but at the moment, Corey Horsburgh, 355k, he is dual front rower, second rower. Don't really need to go into him. We touched on him earlier. 50-minute games, he absolutely goes bananas. Mid-50 average. Kobe Hetherington from the Broncos, 338k. He absolutely blitzed it on the weekend. Look, he is an absolute meat and potato man. Hit-ups. I'm not sure what Madge's thoughts are with him playing the 13 because I'm not sure how well his ball playing ability was. I'll probably come back and eat my words there and he'll brain it and get about fucking 10 try assists for the year. But Kobe Hetherington, I like the fact that he's probably going to have an uptick in minutes. I can see a world where he plays, even if he plays 50 to 60 minutes, somewhere in that bracket, he's going to make a lot of cash. He's got a huge motor. I really like him. Jack Gajewski, 232k, he is a second rower. Look, I was so off him. I owned him when he was in the Cowboys back row. I wasn't 100% sure on what he was doing there. I didn't know what Madge was sort of thinking in getting him. From the weekend, I reckon Madge has just said, mate, roll your sleeves up and go your hardest. He played a lot of minutes on the weekend. He made a lot of tackles, but most impressively, he had 14 runs. That's got to be a career best for Jack Gajewski, and he did it not in 80 minutes. He's won the back row spot there along with Jordan Ricky. Whether he gets 80, I'm not 100% sure. It'll be interesting to see the team lists, but still, I like him for 14 runs in limited minutes with, I think he had about 30-something tackles. I really like it. I've got a cheapie there. Ethan Roberts there. He is dual front row forward, 2RF. He is just a place getter at the moment. He is also my nuff. I never usually start with enough. I don't like starting with enough, but I think in this instance, with the flexi position and how we can use the vice-captaincy loop, I think you need enough. I think the vice-captaincy loops are going to be a lot more lenient this year. I think if we get 100 to 110, it's going to start getting to the stage where we're going, yep, righto, I'm vice-captaining. Some instances, with harder matchups, 90 could be the go. Just with how the vice-captaincy loop is going to work this year, I really want to start with enough. The fact that he's dual is really helpful. I think that's how I'm going to run my team this year, with one enough to start, so that from the get-go I can do the vice-captaincy loop. Halfbacks, Nathan Cleary, 811k, picks himself. Now that he's fit, I'm happy to run with him. Tom Duffy, 198k. Absolutely phenomenal on the weekend, working with Drinkwater, also working with Purdue out on that left-hand edge. Looks amazing. I'm so big on him. His Queensland Cup stats from last year, absolutely ridiculous. 33 try assists for the year. He has a tackle efficiency of 90% as well, and he goal kicks. I think 198k is an absolute bargain for him. Well, it is a bargain. It's as low as you can go. There's a lot of people that are going to try and work in Nathan Cleary-Hines, and we're going to get to who I've got there, but I just think with the guy 198k, I've got him in my squad over Isaiah Yongi. I think the fact that he's kicking goals, the try assist, I think his attacking opportunities will become a lot more frequent than what Iongi's will. For the 5'8", Dillbags, we're starting with him. Was looking at Munster, but purely because Dillbags is dual halfback, 5'8". He's 651k. It's an extra 50k. Literally, I tried Dillbag into Munster. That 50k, it literally bought me next to sweet FA. So I'm just going to run Dill Brown. He's the most reliable. He had a down year last year. I think he'll probably average more than 651k. I think his averages can push up around the 70 mark, so I'm happy to start with him. Luke Metcalf is my backup, 5'8", 443k for the Warriors there. Look, I really like him. He looked phenomenal. I was very surprised to see him in the 7 jersey. I thought he was more of a running 5'8" than anything. But he's controlled the team really well. I really like him when him and Dylan Walker are on the side at the same time. I really like the look of that makeup. It gives him a little bit more freedom. So 443k, he's goal kicking as well. Looks every bit a future superstar. All right, here comes the ticklers. In my wing centres, Herbie Farnworth, 728k. Initially, I had Jacob Carraz in this position, and I had Jacob Carraz in there because of how potent he is with the ball, and his base and power stats are absolutely off the chain. He's only 20 more K more than Carraz. I think my wheels absolutely fell out of the cart when they found out that Carraz was injured, and he's an indefinite injury. We don't know when he's going to come back. I thought I need a guy that has a high base, high work rate. Who's it going to be? I looked down to Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. I talked about him before. The fact that I do not have him in my squad is purely because I got Metcalf and Egan, and I think they're more valuable in their positions than what Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is. Herbie Farnworth has a base and power of 54 points per game. That's phenomenal. I like it. The fact that he has glue hands is perfect for Supercoach. He will not pass the ball to Isaiah Zarko if he is close to the line. The only concerning thing for me with Farnworth is the fact that they need to sort their halves out. They were playing Avarillo in the halves, which it turned me off majorly. So if Avarillo is picked in the 6, this could change. But they're opening 3 rounds. They've got Souths, who's been slaughtered in the trials. They're decimated with injuries. Then they've got the Knights. Then they've got the Tigers. The first 3 games there, Farnworth could go absolutely ballistic. I really like him. He's only owned by about 4 or 5% of ownership teams. So I think he's a bit of a pod to start the season. The game on the weekend where they got towed up by the Gold Coast Titans, the commentators were saying, oh, God, Herbie Farnworth had a really, really quiet game. 60 minutes, he scored 43 Supercoach points. Had 14 runs in that time as well. I just think his work rate, his tackle busting ability, his offloads, he's going to average pretty much what he's on. And this way I can just set and forget him, leave him in there. He's my number 1 CTW. Also, I think he's going to be the highest priced guy that does not play Origin. This is a theme that I've gone here. Trying to find superstars that aren't going to play Origin so it doesn't affect me when round 13 comes. Anyway, on to the next guy, Ruben Garrick, 680k. He's been well documented that I think he is way down on his price. He is at a huge discount on what he should be. At the start, he wasn't picked in a lot of teams, but at that percentage of come up from ownership, he is 680k. The opening draw for him is ridiculous. They have the Cowboys at home, Warriors away, Raiders at home, Eels at home, and then the Storm, which is at home. It's 4 out of his first 5 are at home. He's got the goal kicking. He's got a high base. A lot of people are going off. They saw on the weekend when they got towed up by Panthers that he got a 5. Look, I'm not exactly sure he got a 5. He set up a nice try on the right-hand side. Got to account that into it. His work rate was down a little bit, but again, he didn't have all the superstars. His edge, he was missing Daly Cherry Evans, Hamola Kawade. And yeah, I just think he's a lock. He's a Supercoach gun. He's proven. He's not going to get 5. Don't stress. Look, had a couple of injury-affected games, but still punched out 8 games, 90-plus points. So I think he's an absolute steal at the price range that he's at due to those head-affected games. Look, he starts the cheapest and he has in 4 years as well. That's in our notes. So look, I really like the look of him. I think he's a perfect signing. You could run him as your number 1 CTW, but again, I want to stack my CTW. That is where all the points are at. Even if it's not in the first round, that is where they will be. Greg Marzu, 513k, had an absolute balls up of a season last year, 513k. He won't go any lower than that. His base is too good. His base is in the high 30s, low 40s anyway. Looked really good, that left-hand edge, Fletcher Sharp. I was so skeptical on how all that was going to play out, but that looks like it's opened up a chance for Greg Marzu. Fletcher Sharp, Ponga, they're going to give each other a lot of space on that left edge. In the trial, you would have noticed that Ponga was actually shifting into a 5'8" role with Fletcher Sharp hanging out the back for that left-hand edge. They got Dylan Lucas, Bradman Best. At the end of that is Greg Marzu. I think he's going to fall on his feet and get a shitload of tries down that left-hand edge. Not sure how the Knights are going to go overall, but I just think that edge is going to be oozing points. It's a go-to edge for them, absolutely. Ponga, Fletcher Sharp, Dylan Lucas, Bradman Best, Greg Marzu. It'll have to finish with him. Next on our list is Purdue. Jackson Purdue, that is. Look, I really like the look of him in the trial. He looked phenomenal. He is this tall, string bean looking fella who looks like he should be snapped in half at every given chance that he's got. But he's doing really well. He looked like he created space really well for himself. Good decision making when he got into the breakaway as well. He knew what was going on. He knew how to back him. He knew who is there backing him up and whatnot. He has a 26-point average on last year, but did average just 35 minutes a game. So he's settling in the centre spot there from the Cowboys. 100% he will have that spot with the trial that he's just had. The 35 minutes from last year, he just came off the bench in limited minutes. He is predominantly a halfback. So the fact that he's out there, the big tall string bean, getting good ball and doing really well out in the centres is good to see. Did have 3 games where he played more than 70 minutes and had a 56-point average. And on the weekend, he absolutely blitzed it as well. Scored a try, set another one up. I think he is a must. The fact that our CTWs this year aren't going to be as predominantly 198k blokes, I think 257 is just about as good as you're going to get. For the moment here, I've got Stafford Toa, 288k, with the news of Justin Olam looking to be medically retired. I think Stafford Toa moves into that role. Had very limited minutes last year. Come off the bench in a lot of games. Had a lot of injury-affected games. So at 288k, I think he is a steal. We do have Robert Toya there as well. Look, geez, I'm not as keen on Robert Toya as I was 2 weeks ago. His defence was very, very sloppy, albeit he was coming up against that left-hand side like we talked about with the Knights. His communication with Chad Townsend really needs to improve because I think they will probably pin it on the young gun that this is the issue, even if it is Chad Townsend's issue. I think he's going to have a huge future, this Toya, if he can stay fit. But again, needs to stay fit. Needs to work on his defence a little bit. He just got towed up on the weekend. He has awesome tackle-busting ability. I did have him in my starting squad, but seeing how Jackson Purdue did on the weekend compared to him, I've got him out. Sione Finau. Look, I really like this guy. 4 tries on the weekend before succumbing to heat stroke, concussion, say what you will. Bit of sportsmanship in that, I think, towards saying that it was from a concussion because he looked fine when he scored the meaty. 4 tries in 30 minutes for the Dragons. The good thing there was I wasn't sure what was happening with Tyrell Sloan, but he came off the bench. He came on for him once he came off injured. So it looks like, going off reports, he should get that starting role off Tyrell Sloan. With 4 tries, it's going to be hard not to pick him. The best part is on that real estate outside Val Holmes. So he's a really good option. Again, these guys, we're not going to be able to get them at 198k. We're going to be looking at guys like this that are 279k, Stafford Toa 280, Purdue's 250s, that are going to have to be the bulk of our team for our cheapies. New South Wales Cup stats, 13 tries in 15 games as well. So the 4 tries isn't a fluke. The man can find the try line. For the fullbacks, I have got Tom Trebojevic, 875k there. Look, we talked about their draw when we were talking with Ruben Garrick. 5 out of the 6 games are at home. He's an absolute weapon. He looks fit. Going into the back of the Pacific Championships, he was playing in the centres, but he looked like he was running carefree. Not hampered by any injuries. Haven't got to see him running around in the trials at all, but I think that's purely they just want to put him on ice and make sure he is right to go against the Cowboys. 5 out of his last 7 games last year, he scored 100 points. He's got phenomenal output. Finished the year at basically $1 million, so the value at 875k is really, really good. You're getting the man at a discount. Look, I can't see where we can start without him. I've got him captain already locked in. I haven't moved that from my side. He's been in there. He's been my captain for round 1. I think you need to get him in there. Kalen Ponga is my other one. He's my backup, 719k in 15 games last year. He had 5 games with 100+ scores. Another 2 games he had in the 90s. So basically it's a 50-50 chance last year that he would get you a 90+ game. I think that's really, really good. They have a very handy draw to start the season. They got the Tigers, Dolphins, Titans. Round 4 bye is a little bit tricky, but looking at their draw, there isn't a real standout team until round 12 where they play the Panthers. I think there's a lot of value in the Knights. I reckon they're going to start I think they're going to start the season red hot. It's a very good draw for them. I think they should at least win 2 out of their first 4 games that they play, including that bye. So they should win, they should be on about 6 points in about round 5. So I think everyone's bashed the Knights into, they're going to be wooden spoons, bottom. But their starting 13 is actually it's a bit blind because I'm a supporter of the Knights, but I think their 1 to 13 is quite good. Kalen Ponga out the back. Fletcher Sharp looks to have opened him up a little bit. Also, he runs into that 5'8" spot, like we said. Look, I think he's a steal. I think $790K. I think the fact that Latrell Mitchell has gone down, he will be not available for the first 6 to 8 weeks. I think that is really, really good for Kalen Ponga's stocks. I think you need to get him and Tommy in ASAP. For our flexi, a bit of a wobbly one here, but Nico Hines, $735K. A lot of talk coming around him about, is he the same man he is with Braden Trindle in there? Look, I think it's a bit of a crazy talk, to be honest. I think that there's a world where he absolutely blitzes it. I think round 12 or 13, he was running at 94-point average. That was with Trindle in the side. He had him there. He had a 94-point average. He was worth $1.1 million. Went into a Panthers game where he got 3 in 10 minutes. I think he had a niggling injury and they just took him off. He had Origin, which absolutely crippled him. I think the injury from the Panthers game probably didn't help. They were talking about a lower calf issue. Looks fit, ready to go. Seen the videos of him in Vegas. He looks phenomenally fit. There was a write-up in the Daily Telegraph about how good he's looking. Look, I just think there's too much bashing about him, about Trindle. All this thing, Trindle this, Trindle that. The man was 94 points average. He was the highest average point scorer in the whole game, round 11. He was worth $1.1 million. I think it came to confidence boost that he got. He 100% was not playing himself towards the back end of the season. He had a lower calf injury and then he had a leg fracture. So coming back from that, he was absolutely a shadow of himself. I think it's worth the risk starting with him. I think the price, $735K, if you started with him last year, he's at a discount of nearly $200K. Like he was nearly $900,000 last year. Could have been that. I think having him in my flexi gives me the availability to, if the Sharks have an easy game or Penrith have an easy game, I can vice captain either one of them. Isaiah Yonge is my man that misses out. The reason I'm going to run with Isaiah Yonge, and I'm going to tell you why I've had him out. I've said this a couple of times in a couple of different podcasts, but yes, the attacking stats were nice on the weekend, but again, the hooker from the Tigers basically had him tackled and fell off him. Any other team, NRL grade, I know he's played NRL, but that wasn't NRL standard defence. Sliced through, and then the left-hand pass out to the winger was very good. But anyway, Isaiah Yonge, last 17 games of New South Wales Cup last year, he had one try assist. So he's got Melbourne, in Melbourne round 1. I don't think I can take that risk. If something happens and he goes absolutely bananas and goes 100, he's $232K, he's going to be easy to get in. I can sort that out. I will get him in. But as it stands, I really want to vice captain Nico Hines up against easy competition. We all know how well he does against teams that don't make the bottom 8. And I really want to do Cleary as well in the same sort of fashion. Against easier opposition, him put in there. All right, legends, that is about it. Hopefully that gives you a bit of insight into what we're looking at for the competition to come up leading into 2025 season. Again, our 40-20 Cup league code, 122-155. Good little bit of prize money for that. Again, like we said, to be eligible for that, you need to either be subscribed to us on YouTube or following us on Instagram. They are one of the two prerequisites that you need to get the cash, the $500 or the $250 or the merch pack coming your way. Join on, legends. I think we got about nearly 400 people in there so far, so jump on. The odds are pretty good, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers, legends.